All right, today we're jumping into the EB-5 visa program. Now, for a lot of people, this is a really critical path to U.S. residency, especially when, all the other traditional ways are just completely stuck. So we're going to break down exactly how it works and maybe more importantly, who it's actually for.
So is the American dream stuck in a 20-year line? I mean, it's a pretty bold question, right? But honestly, for a lot of high net worth folks, trying to get a U.S. green card the old-fashioned way feels exactly like that. The wait times have just gotten, well, almost impossible.
And this number right here really puts it all into perspective. We're talking 10 to 20 years. Think about that. That is the actual current wait time for an employment-based green card if you're coming from a country with high demand like India or China. It's just staggering.
Okay, so let's get into it. What is actually causing this massive logjam? People have started calling it the visa freeze, and for good reason.
It's not just one single thing you can point to. It's more like a perfect storm of different issues all hitting at once. You've got these really strict annual visa caps for each country. You have priority dates that can actually move backward. It's called retrogression. Then there are huge backlogs for appointments at the embassies, plus just general administrative slowdowns. You put all that together, and you've created a situation that's, well, pretty much unworkable for a ton of people.
And this quote really hits the nail on the head. Imagine you've got kids who are about to head off to college, or you're trying to expand your business into the U.S. market. Waiting 2 decades, it's not an option. It's not realistic. So it forces people to start looking for other ways in, other legitimate pathways. And that brings us right to the investor's pathway. This is a specific route that Congress actually created for this exact kind of person, the EB-5 Immigrant Investor Program. So check this out. What's so interesting here is how it lays out the 2 different paths. On one hand, you've got traditional visas, right? They depend on an employer or a family member sponsoring you, and you get thrown into that massive shared backlog with everyone else. But then you've got the EB-5 visa. This one is based on your capital, which you control, and, this is key, it has its own separate pool of visas. It's basically running on a completely different track.
And that's really the crucial difference. You're independent. You're not waiting around for some company to sponsor you. You're not hoping the job market just happens to need your exact skill set. Nope. You file based on capital that you control. And here's a huge bonus. It includes your spouse and your unmarried kids under 21. The whole family gets to go through the process together. That's a game changer.
All right, so how does this thing actually work? Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the core mechanics of the program, and what an investor really needs to do to qualify.
The first number you need to know is this one, $800,000. Now that's the minimum investment, and it's only for projects in what are called Targeted Employment Areas, or TEAs. Think of these as typically rural areas or places with high unemployment that the government wants to stimulate.
Now, for any other project, anything that's not in one of those special TEA zones, the investment amount jumps up. You're looking at just over $1 million.
And this part is absolutely central to the whole thing. It's not just about the money. The entire point of the EB-5 program, from the government's perspective, is creating jobs. Your investment has to lead to at least 10 full-time U.S. jobs. That's the main pillar right there.
Okay, so you might be wondering, do I have to go start a business from scratch to create these 10 jobs? Well, most investors don't. Instead, they go through something called a regional center. These are basically entities approved by the U.S. government that pool money from a bunch of EB-5 investors to fund big projects, like a new hotel or a big apartment complex. It makes everything so much simpler, especially counting the jobs, and it lets the investor be completely passive.
And let's talk about expectations for a second, because this is so important. People hear investment and think about making a lot of money. But with EB-5, while you might see a small financial return, maybe 1 to 3%, this is not a high-yield investment. Let me be clear. The real return, the main prize, is the green card itself. That's the whole point.
Okay, but we have to be realistic here. This is not a simple transaction where you just write a check and get a visa. The EB-5 program is a complex mix of both immigration law and investment principles. And you better believe it, it involves very real risks.
Yeah, and this is exactly why calling EB-5 a fast lane is just way too simple. It's not that easy. Look, even with its own separate track, investors from countries like China and India can still face their own backlogs. The project you invest in could have delays, or restructuring, or even fail completely. Plus, U.S. government processing times can be incredibly long.
And on top of all that, you have to prove in excruciating detail where every single penny of your investment money came from. So what's a realistic timeline actually look like? Well, from the day you make your investment and file that first petition, you could be waiting 3 to 6 years just to get your initial 2-year conditional green card. Then, after that, you have to go through another process to get those conditions removed. The whole journey, from start to a permanent green card, can easily take 7, 8, or even more years. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
So, is the investment capital guaranteed? This is probably one of the biggest questions people have, and the answer is a hard no. It's not. In fact, to even qualify for the program, the rules say your money must be genuinely at risk. That means there can be absolutely no guarantee you'll get it back. This is a real investment, and with any real investment comes the real potential for loss.
Okay, so after hearing about all the mechanics and all the risks, what if this path still seems like the right move for you and your family? Where in the world do you start?
All right, here's your action plan. And these 3 steps are, believe me, absolutely non-negotiable. Step 1, hire an experienced EB-5 immigration lawyer. Do this before you even start looking at projects. Step 2, you have to do some serious deep dive due diligence on the regional center and the specific project. And step 3, get all your advisors on the same page, your immigration lawyer, your tax person, your financial planner. Because remember, once you get that green card, you become a U.S. taxpayer, and that changes everything.
So it all comes down to this question, right? For your family's future, what's the value of a predictable path? The EB-5 is not cheap. It is definitely not fast, and it is certainly not without risk. But what it does offer, something most other visa routes just can't right now, is a path to U.S. residency that isn't just a waiting game for decades, totally at the mercy of an employer. And for a lot of families, having that predictability, well, that's worth the price of admission.